Hello everybody, I am back with another video today with no makeup on. If you guys can tell, my skin is like going through a very rough patch, and my hair, I just got it cut and like I'm not really vibing with these shorter pieces. I don't know, but we are back today and I wanted to do a little video talking about how I got diagnosed with Crohn's, just because I feel like getting a diagnosis with this specific illness is or was very, very challenging for me, and I went through a lot of misdiagnoses first before I finally was diagnosed with Crohn's. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey, just to help someone else out, just because I feel like a lot of us who have Crohn's, before we're diagnosed, we have a lot of common symptoms that are literally symptoms for 1,000,001 different diseases or conditions. So I just wanted to share my story a little bit. And I thought, instead of me just sitting here talking, I feel like it might get really boring. I actually have to get ready for the day today. It's like 11:30 right now, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do my everyday quick makeup routine while I talk about how I got diagnosed with Crohn's. Okay, so I always start off with a little chapstick. I just like to use the Vaseline lip therapy one. I have like all my stuff down here. This is my first time doing anything like this, and if I'm looking here, I have a mirror, so that's why I cannot do my makeup in the viewfinder. I don't think that would go very well. So my story starts out in first year university. So I was 18, and I should preface before I get to like when everything actually started. My whole life I always dealt with like upset stomachs. I think most people do, but mine was like an everyday thing. Everyone in my life was just so used to it. At least once a day I would say, oh, my stomach's hurting, like always. And I just never really thought anything more or like deep into that my stomach was hurting every day. I just thought it was normal because like that was my life since I could remember. I always got canker sores. So like if I would eat certain fruits like strawberries or pineapples, I always had canker sores in my mouth like all the time. Again, never thought anything of it. And I always got strep throat. Anytime I would get sick, it was either like the stomach flu or strep throat. I would get strep throat, I'm not kidding, like 3 to 4 times a year since I could remember, which is not really normal. And I never got my tonsils taken out because my tonsils were never affected. Like people who got strep throat constantly, their tonsils would like swell and be enlarged and stuff. Mine never changed. So the doctors always found it so weird that I was constantly getting strep throat with my tonsils like being perfectly fine. So I kept my tonsils in and I just continued to get strep throat over and over and over again. But again, never thought anything of it because that's how I was since I was like 2 years old. Like it was just my normal life. I'm starting with my eyebrows. This is the best brow glue or gel you will ever use. Like I swear to God, I just found this a couple days ago because it's been sold out everywhere because of Tik Tok, and nothing holds my brows up because they're so like thick and heavy, but this is so good. So I'm just gonna be brushing these up. So let's go now to first year university, when things started to get really intense for me, where I was like, something is actually wrong. So first semester was fine. I had a lot of stress and anxiety. Obviously it's first year. I was in a new school. I was by myself, so like all my friends that I had grown up with, we were all at different schools, and it was just a lot of change. I was commuting, I was working. It was just a lot of new parts of my life. I was always exhausted because like early classes, working late nights, it was just a lot of stress on my body, I guess. Which now I know that like stress triggers my Crohn's specifically, so all of that accumulation of stress really made it like pop to the surface. So second semester comes, and second semester starts early January, so after the new year. Right when I went back to school for second semester, I ended up getting the flu. So, which is pretty normal. Flu season is like mid of winter, everyone's back at school. I'm commuting on the TTC, like the subway, the GO train, and you're around a lot of people, a lot of germs, people get sick. So I got the flu, and it's fine. I have gotten the flu many times before. It wasn't anything different. So I stay home from school for like a week. I don't go to work, and then I start to feel better, so I go back to my daily life. And then my flu then turns into a very, very, very bad cough, which I have never dealt with any kind of respiratory infection before. It was always, like I said, strep throat, stomach flu, and the occasional flu. I never dealt with coughs or anything. So I got this really severe cough, and I just had the flu. I was still recovering from it, so I was like, oh, like it's probably just a lingering effect from the flu I just had. My whole family also got the flu. My dad, my sisters, my mom was the only one who somehow missed the bullet on that one. So no one else got coughs though, like I did. So I kind of left it for a couple of days. I was still going to school because I felt fine. It was just this really horrible, intense cough. And it would be so bad at night. I remember I'd be like up all night just literally coughing my lungs up, which is so, like I said, unlike me and what I deal with when I'm sick. Also, look at my eyebrows, guys. That's without even like any filling in. This product is so good. I'm just taking a spoolie and like brushing through them to stick them where I want, and I just like run along the top to make them not look insane. So my cough was getting so bad to the point where I woke up one morning and I couldn't twist my body. I couldn't lift my left arm. It was on my left side. I felt like I broke a rib, and I was like, what the heck is going on? So I went to my doctor and I told them like everything that was happening, and they were like, okay, it's most likely you bruised your rib from how intensely you've been coughing. And it was like all day, every day for about a week at this point. I was like taking Ricolas Halls, like nothing was getting rid of that itch. I was constantly coughing. So I ended up bruising my rib because I was coughing so much. So they gave me a puffer for my cough because they said you most likely have, they called it like acute bronchitis or something. It was like before you actually get bronchitis, because they heard a little bit of phlegm in my lungs or whatever. So I get a puffer that was a steroid. I've never had a puffer before in my life. So I start the puffer, and she told me, she was like, are you prone to canker sores? And I was like, that is so random, but yes, I'm very prone to canker sores. And she's like, okay, so with this puffer, you need to make sure every time you do it, so I was doing it twice a day, morning and night. So like you need to fully rinse your mouth out with water after, like really good, because this steroid can cause thrush, which is basically a yeast infection in your mouth, and you get canker sores throughout your entire mouth, down your throat, everywhere. And I'm like, okay, like so many people I know have had these puffers, never heard of this before, like it will be fine. But because I'm so prone to canker sores, I went to the extreme. Every time I did it, I brushed my teeth, mouthwash, everything. Like I was diligent with making sure my mouth was rinsed out. I had the puffer for about a week, and she said, if it doesn't get better, come back. My cough didn't get better. So I go back, and she was just saying, she's like, hey, stop the puffer, just take like Buckley's, regular like cough and flu or whatever. And so I did that. I listened, and she was like, the phlegm hasn't gotten worse, so you're fine. It's just taking a little bit longer to heal or recover. It's like, okay, that's fine. So my puffer, I stopped after like the week. Fast forward a week after that. By the way, I'm just going in now with the Anastasia brow pen and filling in any little sparse areas. Fast forward a week, and I got a canker sore on my cheek right here. But again, didn't think anything of it, didn't connect it to the puffer because I always get canker sore. So that's like so normal for me. So it's like, whatever, it's a canker sore, like it'll go away. I just like leave it alone. About a week passes. There's a lot of time in between all of these symptoms that I had. Another week passes and the canker sore on my cheek was like getting massive. Like it was probably like this big at this point. It was huge and it was so uncomfortable for me to eat anything. It was just painful. So again, me being me, was like, whatever, it will go away. Like, it's fine. I get these all the time. Leave it, leave it, leave it. I wake up one morning to go to school and I had like 4 on like this side throughout. Like I had 1 up here, 2 on my cheek, like 1 down here, like on my gum area. And I was like, holy crap, what the heck did I eat? Like I don't remember eating pineapple or anything. I was like, what made my mouth go crazy? Still not thinking I had thrush because I've never had it. I don't know what the warning signs are. So then again, I leave it for a couple days. So painful to eat. Obviously, if you ever had a canker sore, like having 1 of them hurts. Imagine having now 5 of them. Then I wake up one morning a couple days later, and this, guys, gives me the chills to think about. Throughout everything I have been through in these last 4 years with Crohn's, thrush was the most painful thing I have ever felt in my life, and I don't wish it on anyone. I woke up, like I'm literally getting goosebumps. I woke up to the most indescribable pain you could imagine in my mouth. And I was like, I couldn't open my mouth. I was like, what is happening? I run to my bathroom. I couldn't even open my mouth. It was like that. I was like shining my phone flashlight. I feel like I had strep throat. I look in my mouth and I had little white canker sores everywhere. But when I say everywhere, there wasn't a spot clear in my mouth that did not have a canker sore. It was on the roof of my mouth, down my throat. You know that dangly thing at the back of your throat? They were all on there. My gums, my inside of all my lips, like everywhere. And I've never felt like that in my life. So I called my mom. I was bawling my eyes out from how bad it hurt to even open my mouth, talk, do anything. I couldn't drink water. So I go to the emergency walk-in. I was supposed to go to school that day, didn't go to school, didn't go to work, and I get to the walk-in and they're like, you have thrush. And they're like, you probably got it from that puffer you were just on. And I was like, how the heck did I get it from the puffer? I was so good and diligent. And they're like, you know, sometimes if you're prone to it, it just happens. They're like, don't worry, we're gonna put you on a prescription to clear it up. So it was this yellow liquid that I had to swish in my mouth 4 times a day for 5 minutes, and then you had to swallow it. It was so disgusting. I know I was on the it was a 10-day prescription, I remember. I was in day 5 and it was Easter weekend. So this coming weekend's Easter weekend. So 4 years ago, next weekend, I was at my grandmother's for Easter and it was day 5 of my prescription, and usually by halfway through the prescription you should start seeing some sort of improvements to your issue, your illness. I wasn't. It was a million times worse. I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking. I had already lost about 5 pounds because I literally couldn't get any food in my mouth. I couldn't chew. It was horrible. And my mom was like, okay, they're open tomorrow at reduced hours. She's like, we have to go back. Like, clearly it's not working. So I go back to the same walk-in clinic because they gave me the prescription, and my mom was with me and she was talking for me, and she was like, it's not working. Like, is there anything else we can try? Like, is it even thrush? Like, what is going on? And the doctor looks at my mouth and he's like, yeah, it got way worse. And he was like, we're gonna put you on an antifungal prescription, which is really strong. I had to pay for it. It wasn't covered by OHIP here in Canada. And he was like, it will clear it up fast. He's like, it's a 2-week prescription. And here's the catch. He said, it's gonna make your stomach upset. Maybe you're gonna have a loss of appetite. But he's like, don't worry. Once the 2 weeks pass, everything will be good. So I started taking the pills and literally day 2 cleared up. It was amazing. I was like, thank the gods, hallelujah. I'm going in with my Maybelline Fit Me concealer under my eyes. So I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, felt so good. But my stomach was feeling what he said I would feel. It was very upset. I didn't really have much appetite. I was like eating maybe like one meal a day. And everyone knew what was going on. Like even like at work, my boss and everyone, they'd be like, how many more days left of your medicine? Like when are you gonna feel better? Like whatever. And I was like counting down the days. So I finally finished that prescription and my stomach doesn't get better. It just continues to get worse. It's like this continuous feeling of just feeling like sick and off. Not even stomach pain, just like not good. So that just continues, and then I realized in the midst of all of that, it was second semester, so I was close to exams at this point. It was like, I think at this point where I started the story was January. We are now in April, early April. I realized I had not had my time of the month, my period, since December. And I don't know why I wasn't paying attention to that, or like why it took me 4 months to realize I haven't had my period. But I was like, this is crazy. I was like, what the heck? And I knew there was no possible way of me being pregnant. Like absolutely not. Like that was not even a chance. Unless I was the Virgin Mary. Like that was just not not an option. So I was like, what the heck is going on? That's not normal. Like I'm an 18-year-old girl. I've had my period for many, many years. Like since when do I just miss 4 months of my period? So I go to the doctor and I explain to them, I go to a different doctor. I switch family doctors because I'm like, something's up. Like I feel like I'm not getting the service I need. So I switch family doctors and I tell them everything that's been happening. I explain to them from start to finish, and then I tell them I haven't got my period. I'm dealing with all these stomach issues. Like I don't know what's going on. So they're like, hey, we're gonna do like an ultrasound. I'm using my Laura Mercier powder, but it's like running out. They said we're gonna order an ultrasound for you and of your abdomen and see what's going on. If there's like an issue with like your liver, I think they said pancreas, like I don't really know. They were just checking a bunch of stuff. And I did a bunch of blood tests too. So I do all of that, and then everything comes back clear, except they saw this little spot in my ultrasound. It was like a little dot. It was about 1 millimeter, they said, on my appendix. And they said they couldn't really tell what it was from the ultrasound, but I wasn't having pain in my appendix. So they said, unless you're in excruciating pain, we're not really gonna stress about it. If anything starts to happen, we'll deal with it then. So I'm like, okay, once again, another dead end. My blood work came back fine, except I was very low in iron. And again, I was like, that's nothing out of the ordinary. They kept telling me my stomach was probably from the medication, that it had like lingering effects. And then I was like, okay. So then I go back home, nothing. Another week goes by, continually can't eat, like just losing all my appetite, not eating anything, losing weight. At this point I've lost like 10 to 12 pounds since January, and I'm like, what is going on? So I go back to the doctor, explain everything once again that's been happening, and they order like a stool sample, which is disgusting. I don't know if you guys have had to do that. Just a disgusting process. Like who wants to do that? But I did that, comes back fine. Do more blood work, everything comes back fine. Then they pre-diagnosed me with IBS. They're like, you probably have irritable bowel syndrome. And I'm like, okay, I've heard of that. Like, that's fine. Like, I can live with that. Like, it can't be too bad, whatever. So my doctor said, I want you to go home, and for 3 weeks, I want you to journal everything that you eat and what, like, so then you know what you eat when your stomach starts to hurt. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go home and I start to do that. Also, she puts me on a probiotic. So I start taking that every day. And then I started to journal, but like not really, because I'm not eating anything. Like I literally didn't have any food to write in my journal. And at this point I was so like, at a breaking point. Like, it was 4 months of like all these different things happening, doctor's appointments, blood tests, all this stuff, and it was just dead end after dead end. I now apparently had IBS, and I was like, hey, I'll just live with it, like, who cares. My health just continued to get worse and worse and worse. I didn't leave my house. So from that point, when I came back from the doctor that day, I did not leave my house for 5 weeks. 5 entire weeks I did not leave my house. I finished my exams, like whatever. I didn't leave my house. I barely passed my exams because I didn't have any food in me. I didn't have energy. I didn't have anything. Like, I couldn't study. Like, it was just horrible. I finished my classes. I came home and I didn't leave my house for 5 weeks. And then throughout those 5 weeks, I continued to lose weight. I lost probably another 15 pounds in those 5 weeks. I was eating maybe 200 calories a day, and I couldn't walk up the stairs anymore. Anytime I stood up, I would like black out, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And my family, my doctors, they were like, at this point, it's your anxiety. Like, if you have IBS, it's IBS. You're just making it way worse. It's in your head. My parents talked to me one night. They're like, are you going through it? Like, are you depressed? Like, is everything okay? Like, is something happening that we don't know about? And I said, no, I just do not feel good. Like, something is wrong with me. And the doctors keep giving me things that don't equal how I'm feeling. So it was just an ongoing cycle. And at that point, I'd given up. I'm like, I'm done going to the doctors. Clearly it's in my head. I was believing my parents. I was like, it's in my head. I'm literally an insane person. Like, what is wrong with me? And I was just literally rotting in my house for 5 weeks. My sister's still at school. My parents were at work every day. So it was me by myself for 5 weeks. I didn't see my friends. They were messaging me like, where are you? Like, are you okay? And I just could not go out. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't shower. Like, I didn't wash my hair for 3 weeks. Like, it was rough. It was really bad. And then I remember in Canada, we have May 2-4 weekend. So it's Victoria Day that we celebrate. And it was May 2-4 weekend, and things are obviously closed. And I remember my mom woke up that morning, and I was sleeping on the couch because I couldn't walk up the stairs to my bedroom. And she was like, you are anorexic. And I didn't see it because I was seeing myself obviously every day. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm fine. Like, what are you talking about? I said, my stomach is hurting me, so I haven't been eating, so I've probably lost like 5 pounds. That's what I thought in my head. She's like, we need to take you to the doctor. She's like, I cannot deal with this anymore. She's like, you look like you're dying. So then I remember it was the Tuesday, sorry, after everything opened, because the holiday was on the Monday. I'm not even getting ready. I got so distracted. I'm gonna do my bronzer with the Chanel Tan de Soleil. She dragged me to the doctor. Guys, I couldn't walk. Like, walking into the doctor, I started blacking out. I had to sit like 5 times on the way to the office. And I'm just using this like dense foundation brush to pat it on my face. So I finally get to the doctor's office, and she was the one who said I had IBS. So I hadn't seen her in 5 to 6 weeks. And she looks at me, like she walks into the office, and she was like, that was literally her face. She was like, I was like, what the heck is going on? And she was like, you do not look good. And I said, thank you. I don't feel good either, like at all. And she was like, I think you might need a blood transfusion. That's what she says to me. If you know me, I have health anxiety. That's where my anxiety stems from. So hearing things that are wrong with my health, like, make my anxiety spiral. And I have a fear of hospitals, so I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to a hospital to get a blood transfusion. Like, are you kidding me? I'm scared of needles, scared of blood tests. Before all of this stuff happened, when I was sick, I never had a blood test before. Like, I was like, hell no, that is not happening. So my mom was like, can you please weigh her? Like, I need to know what she weighs, because we don't have scales in my house. Like, we still don't to this day. So she puts me on this scale, and I was 92 pounds. I sit around, at the time I was heavier than I am now, first year I gained some weight. I was around 120. So I had lost 28 pounds in like 4 months, which is a lot of weight to lose when you don't have a lot of excess weight to begin with. And the doctor was like, yeah, that's not good. And she was, my skin was apparently pale green and yellow. And she said, that's why she said she thinks I need a blood transfusion. She's like, if I had to guess, your hemoglobin, which I think is your white blood cell count, is dangerously low. And she's like, we need to sort that out, because she's like, that is life-threatening. So she ordered more blood tests, and they do the blood test there in the clinic. So she's like, wait in the other room and my nurse will come in and do the blood test for you. And this was the start of my diagnosis. I got diagnosed this day. So the nurse finally comes in. We waited about an hour in the room. She finally comes in and she attempts to give me a blood test and find my vein. And she couldn't get a vein. A nurse above her comes in. He couldn't find a vein. The top doctor at the clinic comes in and he couldn't find a vein. It was about an hour of them poking and prodding my arm and they could not find veins. Because I was so nutrient dehydrated, I hadn't eaten in months, like properly eaten in months. I lost so much weight. I wasn't drinking water. I was just depleted. Everything in my body was depleted. My veins were basically like shriveled up. They always have a hard time finding my veins already because my veins apparently are like deep under my skin. Add the dehydration, it was like impossible. So they tell my mom, they're like, you should take her to Life Labs, which is all they do is blood tests. And she was like, they are more obviously trained, they do blood tests all day. She's like, take her there, get the blood test, I'll get the results today, and by tonight I'm gonna call you with them and let you know what the next step is. So I'm like, oh God, here we go. Me not feeling good, I'm blacking out. Like, I want to go home back on the couch. Like, I do not want to be going through all of this, obviously. Like, I did not feel good. So I get in the car and my mom was like, we're not going to Life Labs. And I said, so what are we gonna do? And she's like, we're going to the hospital. And I started bawling my eyes out. Before I continue the story, I'm gonna use blush. This is my favorite cream blush. It's in the shade Work by Milk Makeup. It's so good. We meet my dad at the hospital and I wouldn't get out of the car. I was like, I'm not going in there. I know if I go in there, I'm stuck there. Like, they're gonna keep me there if I go in there. And my mom was like, no, we're just doing blood tests. Like, they're gonna send you home. Like, we just need to get the blood work. And she was like, the hospital is like the best place to go. We're gonna go to emergency and get the blood work done. I was at this point like mentally not even there. So I was like, whatever. So they finally get me to go inside this hospital. We get to emergency and you go to like triage. So they want you like check in and then they want to know like why you're there. So my mom was talking. I didn't even know what she said. I was just sitting there. And then they call your number. And you have to go into like this little room in triage and the nurse like pre-screens you to see if you actually need to be admitted into emergency. So I sit down and whenever you're in triage, they always hook you up to like a heart monitor and then they ask you a bunch of questions. So first of all, she looks at me and she gives me a chair and she's like, here, you can sit down. She hooks me up to a heart monitor and she doesn't say anything at first. And then she goes, the first question she asked me is, she said, do you want to eat? And I said, of course I want to eat. I'm starving. I haven't eaten in months. I said, but I can't because every time I eat, I'm in the worst pain you can imagine. They thought I was there for an eating disorder for how skinny I was. They thought I had anorexia or bulimia or something of the sort. They thought I was starving myself and that's what the issue was. So then comes the part where she's talking about my heart. She says, we need to get you admitted right now. And I got very scared. I was like, what do you mean? Within 30 seconds of her saying those words, I'm not kidding, I was in the emergency room, in a bed, in a gown, about to be hooked up on an IV. It was the fastest whirlwind I've ever experienced in my life. And I was like, oh my god, like what is happening? So I'm in the bed, like I said, and I have another nurse now, and my mom was like, what is going on? Like, is there something wrong? Like, what's happening? Like, what is this rush about? And they looked at me and my mom. My dad wasn't there yet because he had to go pick my sisters up from school. They said if she did not come in today, she would have had a heart attack and died within like 48 hours. And my heart literally dropped to my stomach, and I was like, what? Does this even have anything to do with my stomach? I was like, do I have a heart condition? Like, I did not know what was going on. And I was like, what the heck? And they said, your heart is failing. Your body is under so much stress and is working so hard to keep you alive because you have, they basically said it was like, I was like stuck in a desert for months with no food or water. That's how my body was. And they said, your body is failing because you have not eaten, you're so dehydrated, like something is seriously wrong and we need to figure out what's going on. I saw so many doctors within that like first couple hours. It was a whirlwind, and all I kept saying was my stomach, like something is wrong with my stomach. So they basically ordered a CT scan. I had to wait about 4 hours because I had to do like this drink. It wasn't a colonoscopy prep, it was, I don't want to say better because it still tasted disgusting, but it was a lot less. It was only one little cup that I had to drink. Basically, it like lights up where they're looking for in the scan. So I had to drink that, then I had to go to my CT scan. And if you haven't got a CT scan done, they basically like injected this stuff in my IV, and she was like, it's gonna feel like you're peeing your pants, but she's like, don't worry, you're not. And it truly felt like I was peeing my pants. I was like, what the heck is going on? But I did the CT scan, and within an hour of doing that scan, I got diagnosed with Crohn's. And it was the craziest day of my entire life because it was like, I was fighting for that answer for 4 months. And I'm gonna get emotional because I always do. I was so frustrated that I had to be pretty much on my deathbed for them to take me seriously and do all the tests that they needed to do. I was like, I was going to the doctor every week for 4 months with something else that was happening, and it took me almost dying of a heart attack for them to be like, okay, we need to do tests, like something's wrong with her. So that was day 1. I was in the hospital for about 5 days after that. I'm gonna do my mascara now. And in my hospital stay, it was honestly it was a horrible experience. I don't wish anyone to stay in the hospital. Obviously, I'm so thankful I had access to that healthcare, but our healthcare, specifically here in Ontario, is so overwhelmed. I was in emergency for 3 days because they didn't have anywhere to put me. And if you know emergency, like, you're not sleeping in emergency. Lights are on 24/7. People are in and out. Nurses are in and out. It's a chaotic place. And when you're trying to heal, it is a very traumatic environment to be in. So while I was in emergency, I met my specialist that I still have now. I love him dearly. Like, honestly, I'm so thankful I got him as my specialist, my gastrointestinal specialist. And he met with me the second day I was there and basically did more discussions, asking me questions, and we kind of came up with a route of action. So he said there still was the need for a colonoscopy to confirm my diagnosis, but he said I was in no physical condition to be put to sleep. He said it would be very dangerous with the state of your body right now to put you under anesthesia, or even do the procedure at all. So he said we're gonna wait a couple. He said I ended up doing my colonoscopy June 14th, and this was May 23rd. May 24, I know I said it was May 24 holiday, but it doesn't always land on actual May 24. It's very weird. It was the week before. It was like the May 18th weekend. But I got diagnosed on the 22nd, and then on the 23rd I met my specialist. And I use mascara. mascara now. My favorite is the L'Oreal Telescopic. It's great. I have very straight lashes and it holds my curl pretty well. So he said because we couldn't do the colonoscopy, they knew I had Crohn's, whatever it was. It was on my lower right side where my small intestine connects to my big intestine. That's where my Crohn's was the first time I had a flare up. It was only one spot. So it was a lot of information being diagnosed, because then there's all like, my whole life changed pretty much. And I expected to get medication and feel better instantly. It was a year of recovery after that flare up. But basically when I was in the hospital, they started me on a steroid. So my plan of action, because it was my first flare up, was a steroid medication, a full round, which was 3 months. They started me on it in the hospital. So I had steroid through my IV for the next 4 days I was there. I always get mascara on my eyelid. And as soon as they started my steroid, I got my appetite back. Like, I was starving, and right when I got my appetite back, they put me on an all liquid diet for 24 hours. And I was like, what are you guys doing to me? I'm finally hungry. So I was on an all liquid diet for 24 hours, and then I was so hungry. I was finally able to eat food. I remember I ate a banana, and I ate it and I threw it up instantly. My stomach literally didn't know how to process and digest food, because I had not eaten actual food in months. And it was literally, I had to learn how to eat again. I had to learn how to shower myself again, how to walk properly. Like, my muscles, if I bent down, I couldn't stand back up on my own. Like, I honestly felt like I was a toddler or a very elderly person. The recovery to me was just as worse as the flare up. Like, your loss of muscle density, I lost all my hair. Like, it was craziness. But yeah, I feel like this video might have been all over the place, but I just wanted to roughly talk about like what kind of I went through to get to my diagnosis. But yeah, once I was in the hospital, like I said, I was just on the steroid for 4 days, and I ended up, so they didn't have a bed for me. I ended up being put into the palliative care room with elderly women that were dying, and I was there for 3 days, and that was also just a traumatic experience. I didn't sleep at all for that entire week I was there. I finally came home the last day in the hospital. Like, my parents took turns staying with me every day. I had to get blood tests done twice a day. Like, it was honestly, the depth of which I can go into of these stories like are pretty deep, but I don't know how much people actually want to hear. I have a fear of hospitals and needles, so the whole experience for me was pretty traumatic, and having to get blood work done, and then my whole inner arms were completely black and blue from all the blood tests I was getting. And it's always a different nurse, because nurses' shifts rotate, so some were nice, some were really rough, and it was just traumatic. I got blood taken out of every single which way when I was there, and it was just, I was ready to go home that day. So I remember my specialist came in to check on me. He would come in like once a day, and I told him, I'm like, please, I beg you, like, can I please go home today? Like, there's no, like, at this point, like, I have my treatment plan, like, I would like to go home. So I went home that day. I started my recovery journey with my steroid. I think I went home like the last week of May. I had my colonoscopy 2 weeks later on June 14th. My colonoscopy was a whole other traumatic experience. That freaking prep killed me. I'm not even kidding. But I did the colonoscopy. So I did everything in my power. I changed my diet completely. I was so strict with my diet. I really did a lot of research on what I could and couldn't eat. Lots of trial and error on what hurt me, what didn't. I finished my steroid. The steroid was a horrible experience as well. Obviously it put me in remission from my first flare-up for 3 years, so I'm so thankful to that. But steroids are horrible on your body. And I remember my specialist said to me, he was like, I wouldn't be surprised to see you back here in a year. Like, most people have a relapse within a year. He's like, there's 75% chance. And I didn't go back for almost 4 years. I was perfectly healthy. I was so good, doing so good. And then my life got flipped upside down. Last year, I went through the biggest life changes in my life, the most stress I've ever experienced, anxiety, the most anxiety I've ever experienced. And I ended up in my second flare-up. And I remember I called my specialist, and I hadn't talked to him in a while because I was doing so good. And he was like, no, you were supposed to be my Crohn's poster girl. And then that led me to here. When I started making videos throughout the last flare-up I went through, which was a 9-month flare-up, where I now ended up on the biologic medication I was so afraid and didn't want 4 years prior. But yeah, I'm done my makeup, by the way. If you couldn't tell. I do super simple makeup. I swear I use like 5 products, but I know it sounded rambly and all over the place, but honestly, that is what my diagnosis and what having Crohn's is like. It's chaotic, it's up and down, you never know what you're gonna get. Every day is different, really. The last thing I want to say to this video, and I guess why I wanted to make it, is you really have to advocate for yourself and your health. It's very easy. Doctors go by the book. You have one symptom, they find a solution. When it's a disease like Crohn's and IBD, it's so complex and it's so deep. So please just advocate for your health and fight for what you feel. If you know something's not right, believe your gut, because most of the time it's right. So yeah, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one.